If there's one thing I like, it's obscure 2010s mini collectibles. But we're not talking about those today. I bring to you the Trash Pack, a series of small, gross-looking collectible figures that basically single-handedly kicked off the modern mini mystery collectibles craze. For a few years, these fellas were on everybody's Christmas lists, and stores could barely keep up with demand. But if you go looking for them now, they're nowhere to be found. Where'd they go? What happened? Are these Trash Pack? Why is there Mr. Beast's face on them? But let's not get too ahead of ourselves and wind the clock back to the year 2011, where we find our favorite Aussie toy manufacturer, Moose Toys, preparing for the launch of their new line of garbage-themed miniature figures called the Trash Pack.
A surprise inside of a garbage can, it's the Trash Pack.
It would drop in July of 2011, coming in 3 main pack sizes, those being a 2-pack release, a 5-pack, and a 12-pack. They would release in nearly 170 unique characters, spread across 6 main categories, those being the Grubs, Hard Rubbish, Binsects, Bin Critters, Bin Monsters, and Binfections. That's been a lot of bin puns. I'm surprised he didn't just bin some of them. I've been there though. Okay, I'll stop with the bin puns. There was also a 7th category, that being the limited editions, with 3 unique metallic characters, those being Trash Cat, Soggy Tomato, and King Rat, with King Rat being the rarest at only 1,000 copies ever produced. On top of that, the Binfections contained all transparent trashies, and throughout almost all of these categories, there were certain characters that would glow in the dark. Alongside the release of the figures, the iconic Trash Pack garbage truck would also be released as a playset that could double as a carry case of sorts. On top of this, a collector's tin and a collector's case were also released. This original first wave of the Trash Pack would release exclusively in Toys R Us stores within the US. Everywhere else in the world though, it would be sent to basically any retailer who'd be willing to sell it. The Trash Pack Series 1 would wind up becoming a huge overnight success for Moose, and becoming one of the most wanted boys' toys for Christmas of that year. This first launch was a huge deal for Moose, though in more ways than one, as this was also their first time distributing to the US without involving a third-party distributor, which was great news for the company as a whole. They'd continue this practice going forward, with early 2012 bringing the release of Series 2, with another 170 plus characters and 7 categories, though this time special edition fuzzy, moldy trashies could be found, alongside ultra rare Astro Trash, Space Junk trashies that could only be found in 12 packs. 3 more limited editions could also be found, also being Space Junk themed. A unique gimmick built into this series was the Fizz Bag garbage bags that would fizz apart when dunked into water, revealing what trashies you got. Actually quite a bit similar in comparison to the recent Mr. Beast Lab test tubes that would fizz when you put water in them, except in the case of the Trash Pack, they actually worked as intended. Though this wouldn't be the only series released in 2012, as in August of the same year, Series 3 would also drop with 203 unique characters, bringing in ultra-rare color-changing trashies, and the special edition Movie Trash wall crawlers that were made of an extra soft, extra sticky rubber. Also in this season, the limited editions would be bumped up to 5, in a valuables theme this time around. One of these would be the iconic Grimy Gold that would only have 250 copies ever produced. One well-documented one selling from Britain on eBay for almost 1,300 euros. I guess you could say it was worth its value in gold. These first 3 seasons, generally considered the originals, would actually go on to be re-released at a later point in Target exclusive rehashes, with the first 2 seasons being re-released in a clear rubber as the Gross Ghosts, and the 3rd series in a zombified form. This isn't all though, as there's still more that 2012 had to offer. Most importantly, a Design Your Own Trashy contest that went between December of 2011 and January 2012, where you could submit in your own concept for a trashy and have a one-off unique design created off of that concept. This was also done a second time in 2013, honestly one of the cooler marketing stunts. Also, the black and blue berry based off of the BlackBerry phone is probably the neatest concept I've ever seen.
It's the new Trash Pack garbage truck. It's the Trash Pack.
and I'm 90% certain that Overripe Orange's top was used as an inspiration for the much later Shopkins Season 2 Juicy Orange. Lastly, 2012 had an assortment of playsets to offer, including the brand iconic Street Sweeper for Series 3, the Atomic Drum Ooze Chamber, the Wheelie Bin Ooze Slide, the Trash Launcher, the Dunk and Dumpster, and the Scum Drum, along with trading cards because every mini collectibles brand gets them at some point. 2013 would bring the release of Series 4 with 173 characters, with ultra-rare sand-covered beach trash, special edition biters with largemouths that can bite onto things, and rare mini trashies alongside 5 new limited editions in a glow-in-the-dark bones theme. And moving into mid-2013, Series 5 would then drop, with yet another almost 170 new characters, though this time called the Sewer Trash, being the first themed series. New packaging was introduced, as previously they'd be in trash cans and wheelie bins, but now for the first time releasing in toilets. Wait, does this mean Trash Pack predicted Skibbity Toilet? Ultra rares in this season would be the Scrap Trash, and special editions were Frozen Trash, being trashies in ice cubes, not to be confused for the Grocery Gang Slushy Cup ice cubes. The limited editions would be metallic and themed for the sewers. The Sewer Dump playset would also be released alongside to complement this series. Now coming to the very end of 2013 would bring the Series 6 Rotten Eggs. Trashies themed in a prehistoric time and would come in unique egg containers. A somewhat lower number of 144 trashies would be in this line, including ultra-rare trashies that would be encased in a transparent egg, and hard-boiled special editions that came in a hardened plastic. The limited editions would be down to only 4 this time around, being assorted prehistoric themed characters. The playset that released alongside this line would be the Load and Launch Bulldozer, though I'm pretty certain that's actually a loader, lads. Get your heavy machinery right. Eventually, summer of 2014 would roll around, and the Series 7 of Trash Pack would release. Though not known at the time, this would be the final series of the Trash Pack. It would also release in the Junk Germs theme, with all trashies being made of a clear colored rubber, and based off of real life and fictional sicknesses. They'd come in test tubes, again, another thing that the much later Mr. Beast Lab Swarms would also have. They really stole everything from Trash Pack for that series, didn't they? This time around though, the ultra rares would be released as the special X-ray trashies, with visible hardened pieces that you can see inside the clear rubber characters. And this series marked the return of the color-changing trashies for the special editions, alongside 5 final limited editions themed as germs. Lastly, the final playset, the Sewer Truck, would also release. Now, despite this being the last series of the Trash Pack to release, fans of the series were unaware of this, and a lot of people were expecting a Series 8, which confused many when 2015 rolled around and there still had been no news on said Series 8. It wouldn't be until summer of that year that Moose would finally announce that the Trash Pack had been ended, which is a shame really, as it was still really popular at this point in time. Reasons for the discontinuation of the Trash Pack were most likely due to Moose Toys allocating resources to their freshly released Shopkins line in 2014, as well as the Uglies Pet Shop, on top of Moose just generally being an innovative company that never really liked to stick to one thing for very long. Eventually though, Trash Pack would get a spiritual successor in the form of the Grocery Gang, a very similar line of gross groceries that ran between the years of 2016 through to 2018, with even some throwbacks and references to the past Trash Pack being hidden throughout. One could also argue that the recently released Mr. Beast Lab Swarms are a sort of successor to the Trash Pack and Grocery Gang, if you're willing to squint your eyes hard enough and look past Jimmy Donaldson's face. If you still really want your Trash Pack though, your best bet will always be eBay. However, they will still occasionally show up at thrift stores, though don't count on it as they're outside of that 10-year throwaway window and are no longer a common sight like they once were. Let's talk about some of the spin-offs now though, shall we? Obviously with Trash Pack's huge success, it would entail an assortment of spin-offs starting with probably the most iconic, the Trash Wheels. Trash Wheels were a line of miniature vehicles, usually with a hot rod or dragster style wheel stance, with a unique rubbery vehicle body, usually based off of some form of garbage, though also IRL vehicles at times, mounted onto a plastic chassis. Size-wise, they're somewhere between the size of Micro Machines and Hot Wheels, though they actually highly resemble the Mad Wheels made by Manatee from the early 2000s. They launched in a total of 3 unique series, and actually surpassed the Trash Pack in production period. Each series released similarly to that of the Trash Pack, with multiple teams and multiple rarities including limited editions. The first 2 series would release worldwide, however, the final series 3 would be exclusive to only Australia and Canada. Take that US, we finally got something that you don't have! Alongside these, a large selection of playsets would be released, mostly being buildings with tracks reminiscent of the Micro Machines playsets of the 80s and 90s, as well as the muck mover truck that could be used to carry around and store the trash wheels. Speaking of which, I used to personally own the muck mover truck. Actually, I had a lot more trash wheels and even Trash Pack and Grocery Gang as a whole at one point, but I purged a lot of the collection to make room for an excessive amount of Hot Wheels and Lego. Ah well, such is life. Anyway, there would also be a release of Trash Pack Trash Racers, somewhat similar to the Trash Wheels, but in this case larger vehicles that would come with a unique trashy, with said vehicles being made out of swappable and customizable parts. For reasons unknown, it was only ever exclusive to Australia. Boost Toys just gatekeeping all the good stuff. Another much better known line was the UFT, or Ultimate Fighting Trashies, a line of hardened rubber trashies that would be placed on spinning tops and would battle each other, made to capitalize on Beyblade's popularity at the time. They released in 2 series, those being Series 1 and the second series, which was known as the Glow Mania series, with the latter being glow in the dark, as the name would suggest. Both series were unique in that they had no rarity levels. They were decently successful, but were dropped fairly early on. Outside of these, there wasn't too much else as far as spin-offs go, though there were plenty of other products, with basic things like plush and backpacks, as well as a decent little selection of board games. On top of these, there were also quite a lot of region-locked exclusives. For example, the Land Down Under had probably the most exclusives, being Moose Toys' home turf, with often early releases of Trash Pack series along with exclusive recolors. Both Australia and Canada got an exclusive barrel of trashies alongside the aforementioned Trash Wheels Series 3. Britain got some unique characters exclusive to a magazine, and the most oddball of all, Israel got exclusive trashies that you'd get hidden inside popsicles. Basically a collector's dream and nightmare combined. However, there's one last little fascinating Trash Pack release that I want to talk about, those being the Trash Pack Construction Bricks sets. These bricks sets, produced by Kobe, were a decently large multitude of assorted sets, mostly vehicle-based, Lego-esque builds that would come with at least one simple buildable trashy figure, though often multiple, and they would also vary between sets. There was even 2 individual series of bricks trashies figures released in packs as well that were available. Now, I'm not personally a fan of knockoff LEGO brands and sets, but I'll be honest, I think these are super neat and would make for a great collection. Granted, a lot of these are basically unobtainium at this point in time, as it does appear that the release of these were limited, with certain sets being harder to come by than others, on top of the likelihood of these being opened and broken into parts, never to be assembled again, being quite high. There are still a few sealed sets lurking in the backrooms of eBay though, so they aren't totally lost to time. At least, not yet. And lastly, there were also some Trash Pack games. And no, I don't mean board games, though there were those as I mentioned. I'm talking about video games. Starting with the Trash Pack game, released in 2012 for the Nintendo DS and 3DS. The gameplay being made up by 4 unique mini-games, in which you'd be able to collect trashies through playing said mini-games to add to your digital collection. The game as a whole though was not received well and has fallen into obscurity for the most part. Later in May of 2014, the Trash Pack Dash would be released on mobile for Android and iOS, being a 2D runner with platforms and obstacles through unique locations and with an assortment of characters. Similarly to the Trash Pack game for the DS, it appears to not have become an appreciated classic. However, anybody who experienced this period knew that the real best game was simply the website, in which your cursor is turned into a fly swatter and you can hit all the flies that buzz around, which is better than any other game undoubtedly. It can even still be accessed thanks to the Internet Archive. Never go away, Internet Archive. Please. Even though it has been a while since they've been in production, there's a soft spot in the hearts of many for these little gross collectibles, having been the toy of many childhoods. Now, will we ever see them again? As much as I'd hope so, I do believe Moose Toys has moved on, though never say never. We've had Mighty Beans return twice, so the chance is still there. But until if that ever happens, we'll still have the memories, and maybe even our old collection buried in that closet or storage somewhere. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Ninja Whip and his channel, for he's the real trash pack guru, literally owns everything and even the unreleased merchandise. He was a major help in the research for this video, so I highly recommend giving his videos a watch. I'll even throw in some links just to force you to do such. I'll even tell you to subscribe to him and like his stuff. See how incredibly nice I am? Anyway, thank you for sticking around till the end, be nice to retail employees, and have yourself a great day. Now, cue the end theme!